What is up? I hope all is well with you guys. So today, pretty simple video. We are going to have a look at Audified DW Drum Enhancer. Now, what it is a plugin aimed specifically at drums. The clue is in the name, and it goes either on individual drum parts, the bus, or even on like the reverb send. And as you change between each parameter, you're going to choose where this is sitting. The parameters inside the plugin change. So the EQ points, the Q of it. You can then apply saturation, gating, and compression. But they're all dependent on the source material you're choosing first. So I'm just going to give you a really simple demo on kick drum, snare drum, and the drum bus. Might throw it on the reverb as well, just so we can hear what it does there. And yeah, let's just have a little listen to it and see what it can do, and hopefully bring some value to you guys. So let's get into that. All right, so here we are in Logic. I'm using a beat again that I'm in the process of constructing. It's by no means finished, but just so you can hear, here's a real quick example of what we're working with. And then when we are going to focus on the drums in this. Cool, so I'm still toying around with that concept. I'm like getting some of the sounds together, doing a little bit of mixing as we're going along. As you can see, it's roughly balanced. Irrelevant, really, just need you to hear what we're working with. Now, if I solo the bits of the drums we're going to work with, if we grab the bus, for example, here, we're just going to be listening to this part here. Cool, so really just a hip hop break rolling along there. There's a bit of a sample chop break in the background, kick and snare driving it along. If we were to just take the snare, for example, and just the kick. Cool. So the plugin itself, relatively self-explanatory once you understand the signal flow of it. So we'll grab the one here that's on the drum bus, and hopefully via some magic I will zoom into that for you. So we're going sort of left to right, relatively standard. We've got our input level, so we can gauge that however we like. And then directly here, we can switch a gate on. For the gate, we've got some really simple controls. It's threshold, and then the mode is hard or soft. What you are selecting just below with the wheel here and all the different versions will vary what's going on with the gate. It will vary what's going on with the EQ and compression as well, okay? So as you can see, we've obviously got this selector wheel, and we've got 4 categories of kick, snare, toms, and other. Each one's got like a vintage, heavy, and modern sound, apart from other, which has got your room, overheads, and your bus, okay? As you can see, this one's on the mix bus, and I've got the little arrow selected that shows the signal flow going through to the bus here. So what that will do is affect this compressor. It will affect this EQ. It will choose how these parameters are set apart from what we see here. So we've got makeup, gain, mix, and threshold. Things like the ratio will be set via that selection there. The same applies to EQ. I've got high, mid, and low. The frequency area that is on and the Q of the EQ is set entirely by that selection just there. Then moving further along to the right, we've got the saturation with a bunch of different types of saturation: presence, vintage, brown, white, and lo-fi. Now to activate, deactivate things, if they've got the red light around them, generally means they're on. So if we click the EQ up here, we see all of the red lights disappear on the EQ, and it says EQ active off over here. We're going to turn that back on. Dead simple to set up. So if we just take the audio bus here, have a little look at what's going on. We've got 3 meters as well. We've got in, saturation, and out, and then we've got our gain reduction amount happening. So let's see what's going on. So it's currently not active, and we're going to activate it. When I activate it, it's going to turn on all 3. So it's going to turn on my snare and kick processing as well. Cool, so that's all 3 together there. Now I'm going to turn off the kick and snare, and we're just going to have a look at what's going on the bus here. Cool, so we can see that compression wise nothing's really occurring. I've not applied any makeup. I have applied a little bit of saturation, and if we're a bit more extreme with that, we can hear what the differences do. Of course, each saturation mode there bringing out a different area of the mix bus sound, and then obviously applied via a percentage amount. It's basically a wet dry as to how much saturation is being applied there. Now, in terms of the EQ, that's set via this bus console, and I'm going to show you that just now. So if we were to do a mid boost, for example, it's really obvious where it's boosting, but when we swap to different areas, we can hear it change. So that doesn't sound necessarily good, and you may even cut that area a little bit. But now let's swap to the kick, for example. It's completely moved the frequency area and Q based more on a kick drum. And we can see that in terms of the compressor as well. So if we reset this back to default, and we're going to bring the compression in, and then we'll change that to, say, one of the snare drums, and we can see how and hear how that changes. So let's bring this down a bit. Going to go a bit extreme here so we can really hear it. Yeah, so the ratio, attack and release change drastically depending on what we choose. Now, something else to notice is the sound definitely changes just by introducing the fact this is on the bus channel. So currently we've got threshold to 0, the EQs aren't set at all, saturation's also at 0, the gate is off. If we turn this off and reintroduce it, you'll hear a change to the sound. It's applying what would be described as analog warmth. Now, I was quite happy with these drums. They're big, punchy, nice and clear. I don't necessarily like what it's doing here. However, if I worked on it from the stems upwards, it might give a nicer result. As you can see, I already had a EQ on the drum bus. It's not doing a huge amount, but it's bringing out the areas I like, and this dulls it back down. Now, this is likely because they are emulating the SSL preamps and converters. That's the only one it states on the website is actually there and emulated in terms of like EQ curves and whatnot, but it's definitely introducing that straight away. Now, let's just have a listen to what it's doing strictly on the snare, and we're going to have a listen to the different snare parameters that it also uses. So we'll grab the snare one and we'll pop you up there. Now we'll activate it. We've got some compression in, we've got a little bit of saturation in. Let's add a little bit of mids in. Something about there. Now we're just going to swap between the vintage, heavy and modern just to hear how that changes. And because each one will change the frequency and Q on the EQ, and it will change the attack, release and ratio on the compressor. a drastic change into modern there. If we go vintage to modern now. Cool, and now let's do a similar thing with the kick, just so we can hear how those behaviors change over as well. So we're just going to bring a little bit of compression in again. And we've added some tops this time instead of mids. Let's go vintage through heavy to modern. And hear how heavy quite obviously changes that EQ frequency from vintage there. And then modern back to vintage. Cool, so that is essentially it. It's really dedicated to finding the right sounds within the drums. So obviously we've got kick, snare, you can look at your rooms and overheads and your toms as well, and obviously work on the bus like we have. I'm just showing you 3 different variants that we can look at here, and very, very subtly changing different parameters of it. It can go a lot deeper, but I didn't want to bore you guys with a really long video. There is a free 30-day demo from the guy's website. I will link that in the description. And I hope the video was helpful for you guys. I will see you on the next one.